Kickoff is just around the corner in Oxford, and these are my game-by-game predictions for the Ole Miss Rebels this season. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, where we get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. The hype and anticipation is high as kickoff approaches for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels. Today, guys, I'm giving and locking in my game-by-game predictions for Hottie Toddy this season. Our friends over at FanDuel have the over-under win total for Ole Miss at 8.5, the over at -120, the under at -102. So get over to FanDuel.com/SECU and place your wagers today. Whether you think the Ole Miss Rebels are going over or under 8.5. And what I find most interesting before I dive in these game-by-game picks, it feels like there was essentially no hype outside of Oxford when it comes to Ole Miss football going into this season. It feels as if there's almost a bit of an overcorrection after what happened last year. Last year was deemed the last dance. This is Ole Miss's year to get in the playoff, get to double-digit wins, finally break through under Lane Kiffin. You don't accomplish that goal, and it's almost like everybody said, hey, that was your chance. You didn't come through. Now we're not going to talk about you at all. Now we're not going to show you any love or give you any hype or talk about you at all as a college football playoff dark horse or a team that could essentially make a run. The question I have, are we sleeping on the Ole Miss Rebels, or will the doubters be proven right? That being said, guys, let's pull up Ole Miss's 2025 schedule as, again, I go through and lock in my game-by-game predictions for Hottie Toddy as we start, of course, in the season opener. Ole Miss opening up with Georgia State. Austin Simmons' debut essentially as QB1. Expect high-flying offense, a lot of scoring. This one will not be close. And I think a great way, obviously, for Ole Miss to ease into the season, because you do have a lot of question marks, especially on the defensive side. You're replacing a lot on the offensive side as well. I mean, guys, this is Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team. There's a lot of transfers. There's a lot of new faces. A lot of guys going to be making their debut, including Austin Simmons at QB1. But this will not be a contest. Ole Miss will absolutely cruise in this football game as they start their season at 1-0. The thing I actually like about this schedule as we look at week 2, guys, compared to last year, I almost thought Ole Miss got lulled to sleep a little bit last season. I did. It felt like you essentially had a preseason. You guys probably remember, right? Those first 4 weeks, you played nobody. I mean, those non-conference games were a joke. And then so when you got into SEC play and you played this team, we're about to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats, maybe you were a little bit full of yourself. You didn't take Kentucky as seriously as you should have. You did not take the opponent at hand as seriously as you should have. And it came back to bite you. And you played, I think, your worst game of the season, and you lost. This season, you jump into SEC play in week 2, right? So very quickly off the jump, you jump into SEC play, and you go to Lexington to take on the Wildcats. Obviously a huge revenge spot. Guys, if Ole Miss wins one football game, just one, they win one football game this season, it's going to be this one. Ole Miss is going to do unspeakable things to the Wildcats. Things that they ought to put a PG-13 rating, if not a TVMA rating on this game, because that's what Ole Miss is going to do to Kentucky. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath. If Lane Kiffin can score 100 on the Cats, he will do it. So safe to say, I got Ole Miss winning their SEC opener, winning their road opener to go to 2-0 on the season. Then the following week, you host Arkansas. Guys, it's a tricky game. I think Taylon Green is a quarterback that at any point, if he pops off, Arkansas is going to have a chance to upend somebody. I don't think it's going to be you. I like where Ole Miss is as a program, as a roster, much more than Arkansas. I don't think Arkansas defensively. I think this is where we see Austin Simmons really start hitting his stride, really in week 2 against Kentucky. I think he will as well. But I think Austin Simmons balls out here. I think Ole Miss defensively maybe starting to find some answers. This one could get weird. This one could be a shootout, but I got Ole Miss at home protecting the home field to move to 3-0 early in the season. But certainly, I don't think trap game is the right word, but it's a sneaky tough game, I think, when the Razorbacks come to town. Take care of their business, though. I got them at 3-0. Then comes Tulane in the non-conference. Do not sleep on John Summerall and the boys. This is not your average G5 opponent. This is not your average G5 matchup. I mean, Ole Miss fans know this firsthand. Think about 2 years ago when Ole Miss went down there to Tulane, and that was a really close and competitive ball game. That being said, I do have Ole Miss winning this football game against Tulane at home. Again, John Summerall's built something really special. If Tulane still had Debrian Mensah as their starting quarterback, then maybe I don't think they're going to have the firepower to go into Oxford and beat the Rebels. So I got Ole Miss, guys, starting 4-0 on the season. Then here come the LSU Tigers. Can you imagine the Grove? Can you imagine Oxford? Imagine the Vaught. Lock the Vaught, right? Like, it will be pure pandemonium. It will be a madhouse. People sleep on that atmosphere, by the way, at the Vaught. They sleep on it. I was there last year when the Rebels took down Georgia. It's a damn party in there when it wants to be, and it will be that when LSU comes to town. That being said, guys, I am going the LSU Tigers in this football game. I am high on LSU. I think LSU will have revenge on the mind for what happened last time when they were in Oxford, where it was that crazy shootout. I think they gave up 52 points in that game. I like LSU's roster top to bottom more than yours. I think LSU offensively, I think this is when you see the defense get exposed a little bit. I don't think Ole Miss, they're going to take a step back defensively. It's just how big of a step back. I don't know that right now I trust Ole Miss on defense enough against what I think is going to be one of the best offenses in college football, what LSU will roll out there. Could see this being a high-scoring game, but I just don't think right now Ole Miss can go punch for punch, blow for blow with LSU. So give me the LSU Tigers in that football game, handing Ole Miss their first loss of the season. Still sitting at 4-1, but first loss of the season. Guys, then you go into non-conference play the following week after a bye, I might add, by the way, as we go into the month of October. Washington State comes to town. You take them on in Oxford. If John Mateer was still Washington State's quarterback, hey, I'd give him a real good shot maybe, but he's not. So I know John Mateer, no problem. Ole Miss wins this football game. I don't think it's particularly close. I think they bounce back the right way, especially I think the bye week's at a really good time, right? You get that LSU game. You get to rest up, recover, because you expect that to be a really physical game. You get to lick your wounds a little bit. I think Ole Miss responds the right way. They get that win, move to 5-1. Then comes a really difficult 3-game stretch, right? At Georgia, at Oklahoma, and South Carolina at home. Starting with that Georgia game, you go to Athens between the hedges to take on a team that you beat a season ago. Guys, simply put, I just don't think you're going into Athens and winning this football game. I just don't see it. We're talking about a Georgia team that is nobody's been better over the last couple of years at protecting the home field. I think Georgia defensively, Kirby, I think they'll have a really good defensive game plan to stop Austin Simmons, stop that rushing attack, put Austin Simmons in some really uncomfortable positions. I think at this point, too, Gunnar Stockton, the Georgia offense, we'll see what the Georgia offensive line looks like. I think they will be better. I think the running game will be improved. I think they'll be clicking. I just think it's too tall of a task to ask Ole Miss to go into Athens. I don't think, talking to Ole Miss folks, I don't think there's many Ole Miss fans that are expecting this as a W either. This is one of those games, if you can make this a fourth quarter game, win or lose, I think it's a success. I mean, I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to go in there and get their doors blown off in 2023 or anything, but I do think Georgia wins. I just think I'm a believer in Georgia. I think that it's too tall of a task to go into Athens. This game was in Oxford again. Obviously, it wouldn't happen, but if it was, maybe I'd give you the shot of the upset, but especially after Georgia lost this game last year, I think they're going to be coming for blood. I think the Dogs will get the win. Here's, I think, potentially the big swing game of the season. At Oklahoma the following week, okay? So you're licking your wounds after Georgia, then you go into Norman. And I think this is a game, guys, that for both sides, I think both these teams, Ole Miss and Oklahoma, could be fighting for their college football playoff lives. And this one certainly go a long way in determining, who actually can make a run, who does make a run to the playoff. I like John Mateer. I like Jaden Ott. I like Deion Burks at the wide receiver position. I think defensively they'll still be stout. I like Austin Simmons a ton. I like Caden Lee at the receiver spot. I like what you brought in from the transfer portal on offense. I think defensively they're going to take a step back, but I like Pete Golding. That being said, guys, this is a game I stared at for quite a long time. I think going into Norman, I think John Mateer goes off in this game. I think he goes crazy. I do think you fall to Oklahoma to lose back-to-back games. I do. I think Oklahoma gets you. I'm drinking some of that Oklahoma Kool-Aid, guys. Admittedly, I think you fall to the Sooners. I think it's a John Mateer game. I think John Mateer, listen, I got a lot of respect for Pete Golding as a defensive mind. I think John Mateer eats him up. I think John Mateer goes off. And John Mateer's a guy, he's going to do that to a lot of defensive coordinators, by the way. It's not a shot at Pete Golding at all, but I think he goes off. I think he goes crazy. I think the running game of Oklahoma in this one could be the difference, maybe winning the battle in the trenches. Mason Thomas has a big game off the edge for Oklahoma, flusters Austin Simmons a bit. I do think OU squeaks out this win, finds a way to win it, which, again, would give you your third loss. So all of a sudden, you're sitting at 5-3 on the season. What's the rest of your season going to look like? Well, the next week, you welcome the South Carolina Gamecocks to Oxford, Mississippi, which, again, guys, after losing back-to-back games, will be a massive one just for morale, just for overall confidence. Can you make a run, potentially being a 9-3 team, making the college football playoff? Well, you got to win out to do that. I think it starts with the South Carolina game, and, guys, I think Ole Miss beats South Carolina. I do. I've got them winning this game in Oxford. I think South Carolina lost a lot on defense. I think Austin Simmons has a big game in this football game. Maybe Caden Lee goes off in this one as well. I don't love the matchup with Lenora Sellers against that Ole Miss defense, but I think it'll be a big turnover or two that flips the game to Ole Miss's side. I think it'll be a desperate, hungry, ravenous crowd there at the Vaught. I just think Ole Miss finds a way, losing back-to-back games. I think they find a way to come back and win this football game. You might recall, and granted, it's a different cast of characters, but nobody gave Lenora Sellers more trouble last year than Pete Golding and that Ole Miss defense. I think they run it back. I think they do it again. A huge win to bounce off, get up off the schneid, if you will, get to 6-3. Guys, the following week, you take on the Citadel. Ho-hum, no big deal. Finally get to catch your breath a little bit. Ole Miss wins that one and wins that one big. Then you have the Florida Gators at home the following week. Guys, this is another team, college football playoff hopeful, if you will, right? They're probably thinking, hey, maybe 9-3 for us is good enough to get into the playoff. This is a game, guys, I think sneaky, one of the best games of the college football season that nobody's talking about. Certainly one of the best SEC football games that nobody's talking about. Maybe, just maybe, could end up being our trip to Oxford. Wink, wink. Never know. You'll have to stay tuned. Either way, though, this one's going to be fun, man. Austin Simmons against DJ Lagway. We'll see what DJ Lagway's status is by that point. This is going to be a really, really fun football game, guys. I think Ole Miss, I think you get them. I think Ole Miss beats Florida. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't picked this up yet, I think Ole Miss is massively underrated coming into this season. I think Ole Miss, I trust Lane Kiffin here. Austin Simmons makes a big throw late. I think this game's decided by a touchdown or less. Maybe it's a 3-point game, but I think Ole Miss at home finds a way to beat the Florida Gators. Big, big win. Keep the momentum going. 3 straight W's to get to 8-3 on the season, heading into the bye week. And finally, guys, the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. Tricky. This is a hell of a rivalry game. I think probably the most underrated rivalry in all of college football. Pure hatred, animosity, right? Throw the records out the window type vibe. That being said, I don't think Mississippi State is there from a roster standpoint to line up and just beat Ole Miss, right? Like it will take Ole Miss doing some things that are uncharacteristic. Like they're going to have to play their D+ game and State probably play their A+ game for them to pull the upset. I think barring that, barring anything uncharacteristic, multiple turnovers, special teams blunders, not fundamentally sound football. Ole Miss is the better football team. I know anything can happen in rivalry games, but that being said, at the end of the day, it's still football. You still go out there and play it for 60 minutes. It still comes down to fundamentals. It still comes down to Jimmys and Joes. And I think Ole Miss simply has more Jimmys and Joes than Mississippi State does right now, which again, guys, would result in Ole Miss finishing the 2025 football season in my game-by-game predictions. I've got Ole Miss at 9-3 overall, 5-3 in SEC play, and a team that, again, I've got as a college football playoff dark horse knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Again, guys, I think there's been an overcorrection. I do. I think there's been an overcorrection by the college football media because of what happened last year, and I think a lot of people saying, you know what? Hey, Ole Miss, that was your one shot. I'm selling my stock on you for the rest of time. You can't win the big one. You can't get over the hump. And I know this isn't necessarily getting over the hump when it comes to the college football playoff. I don't know that this resume would be good enough because what the committee has shown us is just getting in as a 9-3 team is essentially going to be impossible. But with that being said, it's weird because nobody's talking about Ole Miss as being a team that's right there on the fringe. Yet when you look at the SEC predicted order of finish, for example, everybody's picking them to finish like 7th. Guys, if you're finishing 7th, you're at minimum an 8-win football team, if not a 9-win football team. So I've got this Ole Miss team as a 9-win football team. I've kind of gotten to the point with the benefit of the doubt with Lane Kiffin. I trust him. I trust Lane Kiffin. The floor, I think, of this program under Lane Kiffin is really high right now. I think it's a really high floor. Like, I think Ole Miss is going to field another competitive product yet again. Guys, I think Austin Simmons is going to be one of the breakout players of the year in this league. I think he's a breakout star, man. I love his game. I saw him in person against Georgia last year. I know it was just one drive, but the way he diced up Kirby Smart's defense, yeah, I liked what I saw. So I think he's going to be a superstar. I think the defense will get better as the season goes. I think the schedule sets up well for Ole Miss, guys. The way it opens up, getting 2 of your easier SEC games in the first 4 weeks, having those 2 non-conference games, right? Like, you're going to have some time if you're Pete Golding to figure out the defense, and I think they will. And again, I think Austin Simmons is a star in the making. So again, I got the Ole Miss Rebels 9-3 overall, 5-3 in SEC play, which again, I'm hammering the over 8.5 with our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? How are you predicting that Ole Miss finishes up in this 2025 college football season? Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, I do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, on Tuesday, August the 26th, it's FanDuel Futures Day, a new holiday for football fans. It's 24 hours of deals on all your football season predictions. So take a flyer on the MVP race, whether it's Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, whoever it might be. Crown your champion in August. Maybe it's the Lions. Maybe it's the Chiefs. Maybe it's the Eagles. Maybe it's the Packers, whoever it is, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Mark your calendars. This is your day for your hunches, your hot takes, your calls, and your odds. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. And make sure when you sign up at FanDuel.com/SECU. That's FanDuel.com/SECU. FanDuel, play your game. Guys, once again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where we get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Till next time, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.